How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Today is our Super Bowl 57 recap. With me, my good friend, Mr. Idris Salam. How you doing, bud?
Hey, Super Bowl Monday, man. The morning after.
Morning after. Not quite a victory Monday, but I'm going to treat it to a level as such because our most hated rivals yesterday, the Philadelphia Eagles, blew a 10-point halftime lead, lost. In any football game, there's a lot of reasons why a team wins or loses. I've been seeing instant knee-jerk reactions from social media, blaming one particular call. But obviously, there was a lot more that went wrong for this team yesterday. And we're going to speak on it. We're going to talk about Kansas City's legacy, the growing legacy of Coach Andy Reid, as well as his quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. We're going to talk about Travis Kelce closing in on Rob Gronkowski and guys like Tony Gonzalez, another Chief great. Kellen Winslow as possibly the GOAT of tight ends. If he continues at this production, Kelce may very well go down as the greatest tight end ever. I also want to pay homage to the performance of Jalen Hurts in the losing effort. I really think that he showed a lot of maturity, not just on the field, but the way that he handled the loss. I think it speaks a lot to that young man, where he's going to be heading. And, we're going to look ahead to next season. We're going to evaluate if we think a Super Bowl rematch is a possibility. And we have two quarterbacks now that the offseason officially begins that could be on the move. Talking about Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers. The Rodgers future is definitely going to dictate a lot of the trajectory for where these other quarterbacks are going. He's the one big chip, and right after him, it would be Lamar, two former league MVPs. We're going to start with this here. Since 2018, the Kansas City Chiefs have made the Final Four of the NFL, dating back to 18, heartbreaking loss that they suffered to the great Tom Brady. But since 2018, this is a team that has been in the AFC title game every year, and they now have won 2 Super Bowls in the last 4. Usually the barometer to consider a team a dynasty would be 3, but they are well on their way to being that dynasty with all the consistency. They are definitely a dynasty already of the AFC, taking that away from the Patriots. As the Patriots fizzled out, the Chiefs picked it up. You called it on yesterday's show, Idris. I got to give you credit. You basically said that the Eagles play in halves and that they did have issues pouring it on or finishing the job, stepping on the necks, whatever paraphrase you choose to use in terms of the offense. And part of that, I understand the strategy of bleeding out the clock, but there's an aggressiveness that I think yesterday the Eagles fizzled out. And, you got to give KC credit. Defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo definitely made necessary adjustments to stall out some Eagle drives that could have put the game out of reach.
I think, I've said that all season. Philly has a powerful offense, dominating defense, but they play in halves. It goes back to the first game of the season versus Detroit. They went out there, got the big lead, and then Detroit called their way back, and that's how it's always been. And when you play in that, when you play in this league or in any league, when you got them beat, you got to beat them. You got to finish because no lead is safe, and we've seen that with the game with the Colts, how they were up 33-0, and no lead is safe in the NFL.
There's a lot of games this year, particularly to the Eagles, that kind of support your theory about them in yesterday's prediction show, because even going to week 2 against the Minnesota Vikings, they were up 24-7 at the half. That score did not move. Now, granted, you're going to give your defense credit, as you should, but at the same time, the offense didn't necessarily do enough to, make it comfortable, so to speak. And then you factor in some Kirk Cousins turnovers, which he's always famous for. There were other games, even the Davis Webb game. When Jalen was getting his first crack back after the injury, they allowed the Giants back into that game. I think the biggest thing, and I said it before the game, like any football game, it was their front 7 against the KC O-line and vice versa. And I think I'm actually shocked that we only had 1 sack in the game, and it actually wasn't a physical sack. Because in the NFL, if you go out of bounds behind the line of scrimmage on, under duress, the closest defender will get credited for that sack.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chiefs had 1, the Eagles had 0. I think the Eagles not getting to Mahomes, I mean, they knocked him down, but not recording any sacks,
Mm-hmm.
I think has to be the most shocking detail of yesterday's stat line.
Yeah, you have to hit the quarterback, man. And Mahomes, as we've seen with the injury right before halftime, that ankle wasn't fully healed. And you would figure the second half they would come out and say, okay, we've seen this guy limp, and noticeably, let's come out and go after him. Because, see, I figured Philly, they would try to wear KC's defense down.
Yes.
And then say, okay, let's go get Mahomes. He's hurt. Let's go get him. He's not going to be too mobile. But it's like the second half, he was just a whole different person. He came out there, and that 26-yard run, I mean, golly. I mean, longest run of his season. And I think the defense, I won't put it all on the offense, and for obvious reasons, I'm not, I wouldn't put it all on the offense because they had their little lull in the third quarter. But they came back. But the defense still couldn't get a stop. You got to get a stop. They could not get a stop.
And I'll be honest with you, even if you look at the first 2 Chief drives,
you
can make a case that part of the reason why it looked maybe a little misleading is that the Chiefs were not on the field much in the first half.
Right.
I mentioned to a friend of the show, a big Rams fan, my friend John Johnson, that the lone turnover of the game where Hurts put the ball on the floor, which was immediately returned for a touchdown, actually was a blessing for the Eagles because they continued to keep KC's offense off the field. I think Jason Kelce said it best in his post-game presser that they more than made up for that lone turnover. I really believe that if you look at the whole game and you look at every time Kansas City had the ball, you could legitimately say that the Eagles' defense was a disappointment. As far as the offensive play calling goes, I blame this more on Sirianni / the OC, that I believe part of the issue here was that they veered away from what worked in the first half, which was the gradual grind game. When you have the offensive line that you have and the 3 running backs that you have, and I consider Hurts almost like a 4th running back, more than capable. They undeniably have mastered that quarterback sneak probably better than anyone I've ever seen, any offensive unit I've ever seen play this game. But I believe that they were getting a little too cute with some underneath routes, a little too many screens that almost made it a little too predictable. But I got to tip my hat to the Chiefs defense and Steve Spagnuolo, making some key stops.
Yeah.
On the losing end, Gardner Johnson saved 2 different touchdowns on Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
And, Snead got cooked on that late touchdown. Can't say enough about Jalen Hurts and the losing effort. I mean, he broke a Super Bowl record with 3 rushing touchdowns from a quarterback. That just don't happen.
He was the difference in the Eagles' offense. 3 rushing touchdowns, those deep passes. I mean, and he was so classy in defeat. He said, look, got to do better. That's it. I mean, he didn't throw any shade at anyone. He just, look, a
lot of maturity. And I'll be honest. I mean, I understand that emotions run high.
Yeah.
I actually feel that in defeat, and it's kind of funny for me to say this because you know how I feel about the Eagles, but I actually feel that in defeat, Jalen Hurts showed more class than Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, at least initially, showed in victory. I mean, I understand Kelce's the emotional leader of that team, and he's a talker. But, dropping multiple F-bombs, and I don't think they were necessarily throwing shade at the Eagles. I think it was more about throwing shade to the many analysts around the NFL that underestimated that the Chiefs could get back. And I got to give you credit on that. Again, early in the year, you yourself said that you believed in them. Brett didn't have them making the playoffs. I had them getting in. I just didn't have them having the year that they did. And I think what I take away from yesterday's show that was so interesting is that I feel that all 4 of us hit on something that legit happened. In Brett's point, the Eagles kept Mahomes off the field.
They did.
in Zappy's point, Kadarius Toney, using his great athleticism and the leverage of what Travis Kelce draws from a defense, he made 2 massive plays. And I got news for you. If he scores on that punt return, that's your MVP.
That's MVP.
Yeah,
that's Desmond Howard. That's MVP.
The trajectory of the game. And while I'm still at peace with the Giants moving on from him, I mean, he really showed out. One thing I got to say, man, I'm looking at the game yesterday, watching the game here with Brett, and the Eagles committed a delay of game penalty. And that was a struggle of theirs during the course of the game. But I noticed with my own eyes that Nick Sirianni kind of, in my opinion, did something that I don't believe a head coach should do.
Yeah.
And that's talking down to your assistants in front of your players. Right. I noticed it with my own eyes. I brought it to Brett's attention. I even mentioned it to my mother. And I just don't think it's a good look, because when you're the head coach, I feel that it is your grand responsibility to make sure that those things don't happen. I mean, you can talk about an OC, a receivers coach, whatever have you, but when this is your show, you have to take the blame on that. And initially, I know in the heat of battle, things get crazy, but I think that Nick Sirianni it wasn't the best look.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing also, that some people are not too happy about that.
Now you're referring to within the Eagles staff is what you're possibly inferring? I understand.
Yeah. It's the head coach. You need to be watching the clock yourself. Because I've seen delayed games called against offenses plenty of times, and rarely have I seen the head coach just go off on the coaches. They might.
I've seen them go.
They rant. Yeah, they'll rant, like walk up and down, like damn it, you know. But it's more like they're yelling it in the air, or they'll go off on the quarterback or the player. But I've never really seen it's happened. But I've never seen it that much.
I'll liken it like this: it's like if you're a kid, and say auntie and mommy are screaming at each other, or something like that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, as adults, they always got to keep that chain of command where if they're going to go light each other up, it's behind closed doors, because, like, in other words, the kids are beneath you in that level. So they're not supposed to see that. And I would say that the players, I liken it to that, shouldn't have saw that, because, it was the receiving coach. And quite frankly, I feel that when you look at what the Eagles did outstanding yesterday, it was certainly getting behind those safeties and drawing up some big play ability. Also credit to the quarterback, but not the best look, man. And even when they had the review and when Sirianni was kind of playing that game, I understand that he's a fiery individual, and when you're coaching men, you always got to be yourself. And I understand that, because even in New York, Brian Dable has done that. But I do believe that when you're taking too much attention and putting it on yourself, there are repercussions that come with that. And when you get out-coached, which he did yesterday, I mean, not for nothing, if you save that timeout from the delay of game or the almost delay of game, you have possibly up to a minute, if not more, to respond from that field goal that Butker hit.
I agree. The thing with is, why wouldn't they had the delay of game? Okay, yeah, but the defense. Why aren't you yelling at the defense? Make a stop.
Yes,
make a stop.
That was outstanding, and kind of hard to wrap my head around that the Eagles were not able to sack Patrick Mahomes, especially when you factor in the ankle. Now you got to give Mahomes credit; he got hit, he hit the turf. But I mean, this man was getting rid of the ball so quick, and he wasn't just like flinging it irresponsibly. I mean, he made a couple of throws; they both did that could have been picked. But for the most part, getting the ball where he needed to get it, extending plays despite having the ankle situation. And I would have to think that at halftime they probably gave him a good cortisone shot, because they needed to numb that out, because I know he was in a ton of pain. For a little while, I thought Chad Henne might have relieved him. He ultimately decided to retire after winning. Congrats on a good career to him. He was definitely a much better quarterback than I think he gets credit for. He stepped in at different junctures of the last couple of years to help the guys when Mahomes went down. But to sum up this part, I think the main reason the Eagles lose is that they, to a level, abandoned their game plan.
Yeah.
And Brett, I got to give him credit, man. He nailed it. He said the key was to keep that offense off the field. And when you really revisit last night's game, the Eagles did not have an answer for the Chiefs' offense consistently. It was more predicated off of the Chiefs maybe killing themselves on a few penalties. But when you look at the time of possession and the time that the Chiefs had the ball, quite frankly, I mean, they scored on every drive in the second half. And early on, that missed field goal from Buckner, which is uncharacteristic, kind of swayed the tide in the Eagles' favor for a little while there. But when you hold the team to 11 points in the second half, you did your job.
Yeah, you come out there, you're running the ball down, and you're hitting them deep. I mean, Snake was roasted, incinerated. Yeah,
he really was.
You have to stick to your game plan. You're beating them. You stick to the plan until they stop you. But they stopped themselves, and they said, with the Chiefs, like I said before, I said, we have never seen Philly come back, but we've seen the Chiefs come back. With the Chiefs, you have to put the nail in them. You can't give them a chance because if they get an opening, they did it against San Francisco. They were down big.
We've seen it time and time again over the last few playoffs. I mean, you're talking just the previous game against Cincinnati. You've seen it against Buffalo. You've seen it, like you said, against the Niners. You saw it against Tennessee.
Yeah.
This is a team that, and I even mentioned this among some friends during halftime. I said the Chiefs have a certain calm to them.
Right.
That is of a championship pedigree. James Bradbury, former Giant, I give him credit for taking the blame and putting that to bed about, yes, I did hold him. There was a penalty that was not – the flag was not thrown earlier in the game where I think Bradbury probably could have been penalized. It ultimately led to the Chiefs having a punt. But if I'm an Eagle fan, I think there's a lot of positivity to take from this year because, you have a 24-year-old quarterback that, in my opinion, even though Mahomes won, I think Hurts was the best quarterback on the field yesterday. I will say that. And I guess that leads us here, looking ahead to next season. Eagles only have about 10.5 in cap space, speaking of millions, but, they're going to make some concessions to make sure they have more. I would think James Bradbury possibly hits free agency. Not necessarily Eagle again. I also believe that the two veterans, which they picked up, Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, who were both mulling retirement, I believe at pick 10, the Eagles possibly addressed the tackle position, but even with limited cap space.
Right.
When you look at what this team has and what this team is bringing back, there's no reason to believe that they shouldn't be probably the favorites next year. And I'm talking about the whole league, not just the NFC. I mean, Kansas City, I think they might temper down Buffalo's ceiling now that Buffalo has kind of come down to earth in terms of projections. There's only so many times you can have them going to the ball. They keep dying around 2 until they kind of take a step back. And maybe Buffalo will surprise us next year and be that team. But, based on the immediate future, it's hard to count out either one of these teams from having a Super Bowl rematch, which would be the first time that's happened since Buffalo and Dallas.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think what you said with Philly is on point. Yeah, I agree 100% with that.
They still got the great offensive line. Those guys are coming right back.
It's the Buffalo thing. I still say the Buffalo collapse is the Dable effect.
There is some validity
to that. It did not look like it looked last year.
I mean, Josh Allen's still a damn good quarterback, but he went from being an MVP candidate. He was still an MVP candidate, but he didn't have the same kind of year. So, yes, the turnovers were up. You look at what happened in East Rutherford, Jones's turnovers were down. That is an effect. And it goes without saying that, losing a player like a Von Miller definitely hurt them. And not just him. I mean, the defense was definitely down quite a few people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to tip my hat to Spagnuolo yesterday, man. He made the necessary adjustments, and a Chief defense that doesn't get recognized often really showed up.
Yeah,
and made those tough tackles that turned potential first downs into punts.
Mm-hmm.
Eagles have nothing to be ashamed of.
No,
they really don't. I mean, it's a team that I will never like because, obviously, I'm a Giants fan. But
exactly.
I got to give credit where it's due. They were the best team in the NFL for most of the year.
Yeah.
And losing yesterday doesn't necessarily mean that they're not the better team. The better team doesn't always win. Sometimes the best coach team wins.
It was just the better team that day. That's it. But
team that day. I mean, there's a few opportunities that present themselves in a game. And at the end of the day, most games literally come down to 4 or 5 plays.
Yeah, with Philly, I think they can come back next year. They just had to stick with what they did, and they got to stay with the plan. They can't do like they did last night and just feel like, oh, we got this one. Let's just play not to lose. No, you have to play to win. You got to go all 4 quarters, and that's the problem they've had all season. They didn't play all 4 quarters.
It was definitely an underlying problem that was exposed yesterday. Another thing too that I noticed is that obviously the Chiefs are working on a dynasty. That goes without saying.
They got 12 draft picks for next season too.
Scary, but when I think about the Eagles, it eerily reminds me of what the Chiefs went through in the beginning of this great run when they couldn't get over the hump against the Patriots.
Right.
And that also carried over to Brady's dominance in the Super Bowl. I mean, there was a lot of reasons that happened, not just Brady, but when I look at the AFC title game of 2018, eerily similar to the way that now the Chiefs are the big kids on the block. Mahomes is the vested veteran. I mean, Mahomes is still a young man.
Yeah.
But if he was to retire today, that is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and it's not even debatable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this kid joins 5 other quarterbacks to win multiple Super Bowl MVPs. Terry Bradshaw, Bart Starr, Tom Brady, Eli Manning. I'm missing somebody. It'll come back to me. But incredible, man.
Like his run is crazy. His run is crazy, dude. I mean, like I said, 5 straight AFC championships, 3 Super Bowl appearances. Montana, yeah. 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 wins out of them. I mean, not many quarterbacks can say that except the ones you name. So, I mean, God, he retired today. I mean, I think he got 2 more. I think he'll win at least 2 more. Like I said, they got a load of picks next season, man. 12.
Yeah, they're going to make some tough decisions as well because you're talking about with the Mahomes contract. I know that we did a show on this when I was still a member of the JPS show where this could hinder the future. But I think what people fail to realize is that with the cap constantly going up and going up and all the revenue sharing and how much money this league makes.
Yeah.
There's always enough to go around if you know how to handle your salary cap. You know, Howie Roseman in Philly, along with Jeffrey Lurie, have done a great job of doing that.
Yeah.
And the Eagles are a relatively young team for the most part. So I have every expectation to believe that going into the year, they are still the team to beat. You know, the Cowboys, our team, the Giants, San Francisco 49ers. And everybody in the North, who I actually think Detroit's going to be the new boss in the North, especially with the Rodgers rumors possibly manifesting into some truth. Yeah, NFC's wide open.
Goff, man, he's
Jared Goff has
really and said, "Look here, I'm not dead yet."
Good for him because when that trade happened, a lot of people were laughing at Detroit.
Yeah, I was one of them.
I was 2 of them. But what I will say is Detroit is building a winner. Yeah. And if they had just a little more time, I actually do believe that they would have made the playoffs and would have been a very tough out for anybody in these playoffs. They beat our Giants. Yeah. They almost beat Philly. You know, they swept Green Bay, which is something they never do. And they should have swept Minnesota. They should have. They beat them once. They should have beat them twice.
They should have.
Yeah, so, this is a team that's still learning how to win, but definitely a team that I'm going to keep my eye on.
Yeah.
Obviously, our team made a huge jump, but it's still Philly's division until somebody can prove me wrong,
Right.
Us wrong. I think the panel, we all agree. If Zappy was here, he would probably agree with us. And, congrats to a great season for both teams.
Great
I thought it really caught the realism of Travis Kelce and Jason Kelsey's post-game pressers. I watched them.
Yeah.
I also watched the presser for Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's kind of bittersweet for Kelce, for Travis, I should say, because I know that, when you beat your brother or loved one, that's got to be a mixed feeling. It's like, oh, I want to beat my big brother. And then when it really happens, you're like, damn, this is a little harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But, I see it like anything else. I think the more seasoned team found a way to win. And that goes without saying. But these Eagles are going to be around for a while. And I do think the NFC should take notice and say this is still a team that is going to be around for a while and going to be a tough out for anybody in our conference. And, the offseason officially starts today, and you got a couple of stories that are developing.
Yes. Yes. This is the watch. Yes.
He said it last night, man. Happy's like, Rodgers to the Jets. I don't know how many he had when he said that. He's like, Rodgers to the Raiders.
Yeah,
somebody's going to make a deal for Aaron Rodgers. I think those two teams lead the way.
I think the Rodgers thing will decide everything else. I think he'll go to the Jets because he's been on the Jets Twitter a lot. And
I find that interesting, but I also know that he's a troll, so he's a tough one to figure. Because there's a couple of ways to look at the positives and the negatives.
Yeah.
Now, if it's about winning a Super Bowl, I would suggest, the Jets give you the better chance. They got the defense. Sauce Gardner's possibly the best corner in the league already.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a good running game. Breece Hall's going to come back better than ever after he gets that knee back to strength. And you've got a really good coach and some very good young receivers. Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner each swept on their respective Rookie of the Year awards. And it's been the story with them since the Rex Ryan era. They need a quarterback, and that's what has held them back. But then on the cons, I'm like, does he really want to be under the scrutiny of the New York media? Does he really want to play in the Northeast when he's approaching 40 years old? What are the pros of playing in Vegas? My suggestion would be similar to Tom Brady, going to a warm weather climate. Now, granted, they play indoors, but it's a different vibe there, more of a relaxed kind of vibe. And I would think that a player of a Rodgers caliber, similar to Brady, is going to attract veteran free agents that want to play with him or play as a teammate. And then you also take into account they have a great running back in Josh Jacobs, which I would have to think if you get Rodgers, it's a priority to bring him back. Yeah. Not to mention he reconnects with his favorite target.
And Devontae's been talking too.
Mike Zappi just woke up.
I think he's still drunk.
I hope so. It might make for better theater around here.
That might be delayed. That might be a delayed text from last night too.
Let's go live. It sounded like something from Animal House that was going on out there. I was like, we ain't gonna lie.
I think with
okay,
Adams has been talking too. Like, hey, he's been trying to get him yo, come on down here to Vegas. So
I kind of believe when Rodgers was at peace, because the thing that people forget is that he took less money to go to the Raiders.
Right.
Now, while I do believe that the whole thing with Carr was actually a real thing, I also tend to believe that Devontae probably knew that it could have very well been Rodgers the next year. Because Rodgers didn't seem too bothered with Devontae's departure. He took less to go to Vegas. The Packers wanted to max him out. But I also think that Devontae, knowing that Rodgers might not be there past the year, and he's a younger guy than Rodgers, he had to look out for his future. But I think that the reuniting after just 1 year apart is a very real thing.
Yeah.
And as far as Derek Carr goes, Brett's boss is a huge New Orleans Saint fan, and he is definitely excited about the prospect of Derek Carr going there. I think it's a good opportunity for Carr. I think the Saints have one of the most underrated defenses in the league. You still got to count for Alvin Kamara, who's one of the best backs in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that when you get Derek Carr, you're acquiring a Patrick Mahomes or a Tom Brady.
Right.
But what you are getting is a competent quarterback who could play within a system and help your team win. That is something that they have not had and squandered some good defensive units because of the fact that they just couldn't get it right on offense.
Right.
Jameis Winston is who he is. I mean, I don't wish injury on anyone, and I actually think that they did him a little wrong with choosing Andy Dalton over him.
Yeah.
But I can't see Jameis as anything more than a backup quarterback in this league.
Yeah.
You never say never, because look what Geno did. You never say never.
Yeah.
But, Carr to New Orleans is a very real thing. The relationship has been more than absolute biggest.
I think it's a good fit for him because, he'll play New Orleans in the dome. Atlanta's inside a dome, so that's two warm areas.
And probably the most wide open division in professional football right now with Tom Brady.
Brady gone. I mean, so who are you going up against? Carolina doesn't know what they have. Tampa doesn't know what they have.
Carolina made a mistake in my estimation when they let Steve Wilkes go.
I think so too, because he bought that.
Am I saying Frank Reich's not a capable coach? I just think that they already got rid of the guy that had the locker room.
Yeah, and Frank Reich is a good OC.
Similar to Pat Shurmur.
Yeah, he's fair. Yeah, and Ben McAdoo. You put them
but
OC.
Questionable if they are meant to be head coaches.
Right. You put them in OC, they're going to do because that's all they have to focus on. You make them a head coach, it's blah, 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 blah. It's crazy. So I think they made a mistake with Steve Wilkes. I think Wilkes is in where did he just go to?
Yeah, I believe somebody picked him up.
Yeah, someone picked him up. Was it Minnesota?
I gotta take a peek because I know that Zappy had made mention of it.
Yeah, he went to Silver because I know Flores went to Minnesota to be their DC.
He's with the Niners now. He replaced D'Amico Ryans.
Right.
Quality pickup.
Defense is going to be
That's
good.
A quality pickup.
That's a quality pickup. That defense is going to be good.
Oh yeah. They lose a great coach, and now they replace him with another. Shout out Wink Martindale. Glad we're going to be getting him back.
I know, man. I'm so glad. I think he likes New York, man. And he had so much control. Yeah.
And even though every assistant wants to be a head coach, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
I also believe that it has to be the right situation because the cruel part about the NFL is that if you don't hit on your first chance as a head coach, there's no guarantee that you get that second opportunity.
Right.
Like what happened with Pete Carroll after failing twice with the Jets and the Patriots before he went to USC, then came back to the NFL, and is still coaching the Seahawks. Yeah. That's rare. That just doesn't happen.
Look at Lovey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Lovey's a good teacher of the game. I just think that Lovey's fallen victim to not being in the best situations because when you see organizations that have a lot of turnover at coach, it's deeper than if the coaching's good or not. At the end of the day, all these guys know how to coach at this level, but it comes to a continuity or lack thereof that goes on upstairs because not every organization is equal. We can make fun of the Eagles about not winning a Lombardi for so many years and for having a losing culture for a decent chunk of that. But, you have the Andy Reid era that went into the Doug Peterson era and now the Nick Sirianni era, who, by the way, not all the way sold on Sirianni just yet.
I'm not either.
I do believe that team is loaded with very talented assistants that sometimes mask. And it's like any other coaching staff, You look at Parcells, great coach, but he certainly had his fair share of nice assistants, ranging from Bill Belichick, Tom Coughlin, and even Sean Payton.
Payton, he had a lot of them.
And he made them better coaches too. Let's not mistake that. But like I said, I just saw a few things yesterday that I just didn't care for.
Yeah.
I don't see Andy Reid embarrassing Eric Bieniemy on the sideline if he thinks he does. I just didn't care for it, man. I just didn't care for it. It's something that I visibly noticed.
A game of that magnitude also is, and like I said, he should have had that same energy with the defense that was just giving up chunks of yards.
Indeed.
He was stopping
And like I already made the analogy, I think if you're going to go ham on somebody, make it your players.
Right.
Because when you start ripping the other coaches,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're setting the best precedent to your guys because your guys are looking for a calm. One thing I got to say about Andy Reid at the half, Spags,
Mm-hmm.
who was obviously having his fair share of stopping the Eagles and difficulties,
Mm-hmm.
they had that calm about him. And there's another word that goes with calmness when
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
It's championship pedigree.
Right.
And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles are closing in on, but they're still trying to completely hone in. And something that the Kansas City Chiefs,
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, have, and it's something that you got to praise it, man. You got to praise it. There was a time where the Chiefs were viewed at as like, oh, they're kind of fun to watch, but they're not there yet. They're kind of pretenders, and nobody's saying that anymore.
You know something? I was sitting there thinking, they ran that play again, little circle play.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I think I laugh, man. It's so funny because
I'll tell you another one. When the Eagles looked like they were going heavy set.
Yeah.
And what everybody thought was a sneak.
Yeah.
And they did that quick pitch out.
Yeah.
I was getting nightmares of them running that shit on us in the divisional round.
Yeah, I know. They got it.
Yeah, they caught us. And it's such a hard play to decipher because you're bringing in all the meat. So you're not expecting one of your slashers to just come out. But I got to say, there were so many poignant moments of last night's game.
Yeah.
But none bigger than Kadarius Toney kind of running in motion, changing his route, and using Travis Kelce as a decoy. That was a hell of a call.
He's so shifty. It's like he has that Barry Sanders type switch of direction, man.
Oh yeah. And not everyone's created equal with that God-given gift. But I must admit that if he keeps his head into the game and used properly, from a production level, as he grows into the receiver that he could be. I still question his desire to be that player. Yeah. But I must admit, they did lose Tyreek Hill. This is a guy that can definitely, Zappy did call for it.
Another Tyreek Hill, Dante Hall. Was Dante Hall? Dante
Hall. That was a little bit before the Mahomes era, but a similar kind of talent.
Tamarick Vanover guys who just shifty. Because he's in a perfect position. Dude, you're with a team that's built to win for the next.
And they're tight. They look out for each other. They really do look out for each other.
Right.
Something else. You want to talk about leadership?
Yeah.
Butker missed a field goal that I think he should have made.
Yes, yeah.
I didn't see anybody on that sideline going in on the kicker. Now I get it. He didn't miss 4 extra points either.
Right.
But
was that because Zappy just chimed in?
In my opinion, that are deeper than just like a quick moment. I do believe that there is a lot to say about that because when you are getting praised, when things are going great, the media is loving you up like they did with Nick Sirianni.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see a few things go differently and he's ripping coaches, but yet instead of taking the 5-yard penalty, he used a very valuable timeout that I'm sure most Eagle fans wish they had in that final minute and a half. And that is the difference between giving your quarterback a chance to take you down the field and get your very good kicker ready to tie it up, or we saw what happened.
And the way they moved the ball, the 5-yard penalty may not have hurt. I mean, because they can move the ball.
God, no. Not with the frequency. Not with the frequency that they that they go for it on 4th. I actually almost forgot that the Eagles had a punter on the active roster yesterday because
I
got to give them that. They were not afraid to go for it on 4th. The Chiefs did them a favor on one of those, going off sides.
Yeah.
And that was a wild play too because the play clock was running down.
Yeah.
And then that's one thing that once again, Sirianni can say what he wants and he can rip coaches, but there's got to be accountability on his side too, because at the end of the day, if you're going to take all that credit, you also got to take the other side of it.
Right.
And that's why at the end of the day, according to what I watched yesterday, that's why Andy Reid is a Hall of Fame coach because he's seen it all and done it all and been through both sides of the spectrum. Nick Sirianni, we'll see. They fired a Super Bowl winning coach in Doug Peterson.
Right.
So I'm not going to sit here and act like Nick Sirianni is totally safe because when you have that kind of roster, at some point, similar to what's even if you look at Buffalo, there's only a certain amount of patience that a team will have, like McCarthy in Dallas. He's another one. For you to win the big one, because I already alluded to it at this juncture of their respective careers, talking about coaches in general at that level, they could all coach.
Right.
But I think Jalen Hurts said it best. If you lose, you got to learn. And a credit to him as a very young man, I got to say it's very wise of him.
Yeah.
He's a kid that's dealt with a lot of adversity. He's been on a football field since he was 5 years old. You get demoted from one of the biggest and best programs in all of collegiate football.
Yeah.
Year one, a lot of people.
And then you drafted in the second round, He
threw 4 INTs against the Giants last year on Michael Strahan Day. And I'll admit, I'm like, man, this kid's talented, but I don't think he's it. A year later, he's certainly proven me wrong. And, got to shout out Jason Kelce in defeat. That's a leader, bro.
Yeah.
That is a leader. He plays for the enemy, but it's hard not to respect that guy,
Yeah. Those two brothers, they're just
Jalen. Because Jalen, let me tell you, man, Jalen's the MVP if they win.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had a hell of a game.
You know what? You can give it to him in defeat, but I know they won't. But because he had the one
once in the history of the NFL.
Yeah. He had the fumble, okay, but he was the difference between them losing by 3 points and losing by 20-something points.
Because I think in the first half, with Casey's offense constantly being off the field, I think it was masked that the Eagles' defense was really, really struggling with these guys.
They were.
I mean, when you only have the ball for like 7-8 minutes, and you run a third of the plays that the other guys did, and like I said, that turnover that you just mentioned with Hurts wasn't necessarily a killer because they got right back on the field.
And people are even talking about how that was the difference in the game. No, it wasn't.
No,
it wasn't.
I mean, on points you can say that, but I still say
it didn't determine.
The tale of two halves. But what was the main denominator that was different? Well, obviously, Casey made some very important stops. Communication levels. Running that, like for instance, you get hit with that delay, then you almost get hit with a second one.
Right.
But that's stuff that championship teams are not supposed to do.
Exactly.
And one other thing I want to say before we get out of here. Arizona needs to do better.
Oh, my God.
Dude, I thought they were playing on the rink.
Right.
It looked like that old commercial. Did that commercial with the Rangers?
Yeah.
Charles Oakley and Patrick Ewing on blades, like they didn't know how to. And you had the hockey guys playing basketball.
Right.
That's what it looked like, bro.
I'm like, look, you got a stadium with a retractable roof. Why is the field the way it was?
And dude, this is the third time in the last 15 years. So basically, once every 5 years, the Super Bowl has been in that stadium. Patriots, Giants, Patriots, Seahawks hosted those 2 Super Bowls. They hosted another great one yesterday. But when I think about the issues with non-contact injuries, and this is the pinnacle of your sport, you can't have guys like slipping. And this wasn't just one player.
Whoa.
This was everybody.
It was like everybody.
The Eagles, they showed it on the sidelines with how frequently that they had to change their cleats. That should not happen.
That field right.
And I understand that it's about entertainment, but if the halftime show was ripping up the field that much, you might have to question if maybe right next to it, if you put it on a big thing. I understand that the halftime show is a big part of the entertainment value.
Yeah.
But, bro,
you can't compromise the game.
If the field is you can't compromise the reason why we're watching this.
No.
Shout out Rihanna. Not the most amazing performance, but one thing I gotta say is that the woman's pregnant and got up there and did a thing. So, and a friend of mine brought this to my attention. that she hasn't necessarily dropped like anything really new for the better part of a decade.
It's been a while.
But when you think about where she's at, it's like anything else. She doesn't have to anymore.
Right.
But I saw my fair share of comical memes. Rihanna's unborn baby, 1 Super Bowl appearance, Dak Prescott 0.
Yeah.
You still watching Zappy? Yeah, so you always got to have some fun with that. And shout out to even Eagle fans for doing what we expected. Booing Dak Prescott, even when he's getting honored for one of the most admirable things you can do. The Walter Payton Man of the Year award is the most prestigious award in the NFL.
Yeah.
In terms of the NFL honors. And I'm like, Jesus, they're still booing him? I'm like, Phil, come on, guys. What are they going to do next? They're going to start throwing batteries at him like they did the Santa Claus?
LeBron, too.
I'm always okay with that.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
I got to hit on this, bro. LeBron, listen to this crap.
Yeah.
LeBron James on his Twitter. You can't make that kind of call in a Super Bowl, talking about the Bradbury call. I'm like, my dude, you're a week removed from acting like a 9-year-old when you didn't get the foul in Boston.
Like you just lost the championship.
I was so close to typing at him and being like, well, you know what I didn't like? When Draymond got suspended so you could solidify your legacy. I didn't like that either.
Exactly.
Come on now.
You can't make that call, but you can make the one on you when you walk like 3 miles to the hoop and didn't get fouled.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's crying that he didn't get the foul call. I'm like, what about the 3.5 steps you took to get there?
I took the L trade.
Come on, bro. Come on, bro. No. Once again, nothing but respect for the talent that LeBron James is. I will never deny him of that. But my God, sometimes when this dude gets on Twitter, I'm like, man, they gotta. It's like when Trump used to get on there. I'm like, hey, have another martini.
Yeah, just saying stuff. You're like, dude, just
right. I'm like, stop talking.
Minute,
Go away, bro.
You don't have to talk all the time,
You apprentice, man. Go fire Meatloaf.
I don't know, man.
Dude, I don't always have the answers, but I must admit, that was comical. And, he opened himself up.
It was, man.
Because, like so many people were like, hey, isn't that you? And they put the video right up, and he's like, like pounding the floor. And
with the Dak thing, it kind of reminded me of how every NFL draft, it's customary you boo Roger Goodell.
Absolutely.
It's like I think like Roger Goodell
during the Attitude Era.
I think Goodell's got so used to it that he embraces it. Like, yeah, I know they're gonna.
Oh yeah. Hey, it's like our boy Quinton says: any publicity is good publicity. Because when I see Goodell get booed, it reminds me of the Attitude Era with Vince McMahon. When trying to talk to the crowd, they're like, asshole. Yeah.
It's tradition, man.
Because, Goodell is at that level now, where
he
no matter what city you're in, you're getting booed.
You get booed. It's funny though.
Indeed.
Oh man.
We have one more football show to come before we completely divert our attention to the NBA as well as baseball. We're gonna definitely try to do a better job mixing in some hockey around here.
Yeah.
But we do have the top 10 franchises show that we're going to talk about. And we purposely waited to after the Super Bowl to see if the Chiefs won because they might be a little bit of a driving force to possibly crack that top 10. We're talking about the entire history of these franchises, not just Super Bowl era, not just, convenient 20-year stuff, recency bias. We're really digging in on this one. Also want to cook up on a sports movie show, something that I've wanted to do for a good while.
For years, so yeah.
We almost were in the process of recording. We had a couple of things, come up, but definitely want to get on that. But yeah, with the NBA playoffs heating up, we're definitely going to be jumping into that. Mm-hmm. Our New York Knicks going to be playing Brooklyn today, possibly for the in the KD era. Even when he was hurt and recovering, we have never beaten Brooklyn. So come on, Knicks,
let's go.
Time to start a new habit tonight.
Yeah.
Good job today. Yeah, dude. I enjoyed yesterday's game, bro. I gotta say, it was a good game.
And think about it with the Eagles, like I put on my wall, they played 2 good Super Bowls, the last 2. Real good. They came down to the wire, each one.
And you could even back that up to Andy Reid's last Super Bowl as well. But the Eagles fall to 1-3 in the big game.
I'm glad that Andy Reid won. Another reason because that's the organization that lost faith in him, fired him.
I didn't like, and I said it on yesterday's show, not to sound like a broken record, but I didn't like the way that they got rid of him, given the personal tragedy in his life. I understand it's a business. I get that.
Right.
But I feel that they could have handled that situation with a little more grace.
Yeah.
And Travis Kelce, he said it. He said, the people in Philly still love him. Obviously, we embrace him here, but it means a lot to me that as great as he was over there, he did more with us.
Right.
There's a lot of ways to look at it. I mean, when you have Patrick Mahomes, that it definitely helps. But, you look at the trajectory of Andy's career. Mm-hmm. I mean, in my opinion, he made every quarterback better he's ever coached, whether it be McNabb, whether it be Mike Vick. I mean, hell, even Vince Young as an Eagle beat us during our Super Bowl season, actually. Right. And, Carson Wentz, he could be the brunt of many jokes now, but he had a decent run there where he was an MVP candidate before he got hurt. And you can't say anything more about Nick Foles.
Yeah. Nick Foles did his job in Philly.
Indeed. But to your point, I got to say this last thing about Sirianni before we get out of here. Mm-hmm. You said it yesterday that they're passionate. They know their football over there. But they are quick to turn on you, similar to New York. Similar to New York. Mm-hmm. So Sirianni, just putting this out there. I'm keeping an eye how that goes because I'll be honest. I was blown away when Doug Peterson got fired. I mean,
he just got into the Super Bowl.
I think it was kind of deeper than. I think that there was just a bad, spoiled smell, so to speak, from the players when he laid down. I mean, the hell with the Giants right now. We were a bad team anyway. If we go to the playoffs, it's like, who cares? Yeah. We might have beat Tampa because we matched up with them, but who knows?
Yeah.
What I'm making is that the NFC East was historically bad. I think it was more about the integrity of the game. Right. When you got a guy like Jason Kelce who never takes a play off.
Right.
That wants to win.
Down.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I was mad. Not even I know I was mad because we could have gotten the play, but I was mad like, how you gonna just lay down? Yes. Even taking us out of the equation. How do you just lay down?
Yeah. And it wasn't even so much that they laid down. I think it even goes a step further that the game was on primetime.
Exactly, Sunday night.
And I will say this: I'm sure if the NFL could revisit that, they probably wish that Philly played first.
Yeah,
because
in the day.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
hindsight's always 20/20. I'm not going to cry over spilled milk about probably one of the worst season in NFC East history. I'm not going to do that. But to kind of circumnavigate back around the point. Like I saw a few things I didn't like, and I've been very clear about that. So, winning cures everything. But if you become bridesmaids a little too often, it comes a point where you're like, wait a minute, we got this guy, we got that guy, and this guy's the best center, and this guy is kind of like a poor man's Travis Kelce. Talking about Goddard, who's really stepped up his game. You got 2 wonderful receivers out there. Devontae Smith, shout out to him. He's really stepped up his game. A.J. Brown, can't say enough about him. Mm-hmm. So you're like, at some point, and it's early in it,
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, it goes quick and it comes quick on how quick they embrace you and how quick they forget. And listen, Brian Dable is not immune to that either. Because one thing about New York, Philly, the Northeast in general, is that fans are petty.
You know what? Look at Joe Judge. That first year,
everybody
made it
loved him.
Like they wanted to fight. Like, okay, this guy right here, he got the team playing.
Right.
But as soon as he ran that,
oh my God, dude, that looked like Pee Wee football, bro. I'll never forget that.
That was the
2 quarterback sneaks out of your own end zone.
Back to back.
I'm like, bro, just punt on 3rd down if that's the kind of fight that you
just punt the ball.
Oh
yeah, that was it.
3rd down. That's less shameful than doing that.
Dude, I cut the game off at halftime. After that, I was like, I can't watch no more.
When Quinton brought it to my attention that Kenny Golladay was alligator arming, I'm like, yeah, I'm done with this too.
Yeah.
But hey, we're in a better place now. NFC East is definitely back. It's going to be such a fun division to watch for the next few years. And it's going to be a fun offseason, man. We're going to be keeping you guys updated on things going around the league. Looking forward today to see if at some point ESPN or up on my NFL network, if I see any movement with those two quarterbacks we mentioned. And also Lamar Jackson.
Who
going to be – yeah, man. It's going to be good, man. Until next time, he is Idris. I am Richie. And thank you so much for sticking with us throughout this season. It's been very enjoyable week to week to week, giving you our best take and our best punches at the football season. Until next time, we out.